It's 8:26. I'm going to apologize for my teeth. Is someone online? How funny. How can I not see everyone? I think you might be on, there you go. I think you might be set to mute. If you unmute it. How you doing, Vinny? I think there's a mute at the top. If you move your mouse, there's a microphone. How you doing, Marty? Good to, I can't really see you, but good to see you typing. Thanks for joining us. We've got 3 viewers and we're waiting for a few more. When I put my mouse over the image on my screen, a menu appears at the top, one of which is a microphone. Very nice. There should be an image of a phone. You can click to end the session. How you doing, Jim? Six viewers. Who just joined us? I don't seem to be able to hear anyone. Maybe that's the format. I hope not. I also would prefer to see everyone. I thought I would have your images on my screen. Marty, I agree. I think you can hear me as long as you can hear me, but it looks like you can't talk, which is a little bit of a problem, but maybe that's the process. Boy, I hope not. If it is the process, I'll try and fix that for next time. Great. Welcome, Father Jake. Doesn't seem like anyone can talk, but you can type. Vinny, it looks like that's the process. I'm disappointed about that. We might have to make do today. Great, Jim. Great to have you. There's just one more person we're waiting for. Jim, I'm glad you can see me. I'm disappointed that I can't see you. I think that might be the format for tonight. That looks like the case. I think there's only one more person we're waiting for. Stephen. Stephen, are you on? I do. I think you're on. I think we're all here. That's what you say, Jim. I think 7 viewers are on now, so I think that's everybody. So I think we're going to begin. And I think we're going to begin. We are going to begin with a prayer. And I'm trying to quickly put up an icon on the screen, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. So we will have to. We'll just open with a brief prayer. All right. Tell you what. I'm going to do this. Why don't we let's begin with a prayer. Heavenly King, Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, present in all places and filling all things, treasury of blessings and giver of life, come and abide in us, cleanse us from every stain, and save our souls, O gracious Lord. Amen. Good evening and welcome to a webinar for facilitators training for the journey of marriage. I have to say, it seems like I'm talking to myself. You're not kidding, Vinny. So it feels like I'm talking to myself. So if I wander off, I'm watching the text clearly. Feel free to type questions as we go. This is actually being broadcast, so it is available for viewing, I think, afterward, just as an FYI. But I'm gonna jump right in. And what I want to do to make it a little more bearable, so that you don't have to stare at me the entire time, is I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to share my screen, and specifically, I'm going to share a little PowerPoint. So at this point, we're going to go through a little bit of an introduction. If you can't see the PowerPoint, Tell me through a chat. By way of introduction, I just want to comment on the current state of marriage, particularly marriages in our church. Specifically, the Boston metropolis in the last 10 years has seen a 50% reduction in couples coming to the church to be married. We can see the current state of the church, that increasingly families are drifting away as we move away from cultural connections to the Greek Orthodox Church. We see increasingly couples getting married with people who aren't Orthodox and certainly aren't Greek, and the church kind of drifting away from the center of people's lives with a corresponding reduction in the number of marriages. Secondarily, we live in a culture of divorce, and increasingly we see these pressures on marriage. An increasing number of people come from divorced homes and really push off marriage later in life. And so there's a kind of a culture that's working against marriage. There's more reasons for the ways our culture are working against marriage. For our purposes, it's important to recognize that there are these downward pressures on couples being able to marry in the church, and actually have successful marriages. Secondly, the current state of marriage prep, Greek Archdiocese. If I could talk to you and if I could hear you, I would ask you what the current state of marriage prep is in the church. Number two, I would ask you, for those who are married, what kind of marriage preparation did you have? And in many cases, the answer is it's hit or miss. That what we don't see in the Archdiocese is a consistent record of quality marriage preparation among our parishes. Some priests who have the time, who have the talent, and who have the vision develop their own marriage preparation programs. They'll meet with couples 3 times. I know several priests who meet 6 times with couples. And those couples get good marriage prep. But those are the exceptions rather than the norm. And so what we see is, it's even when it works, it's intensive, it's time-consuming for the priest, and there's some other shortcomings with marriage prep that we'll talk about. But when we look at what's needed, we're looking for a way to respond to this need, the inadequate marriage preparation program that exists in the Archdiocese, and the increasing challenges that couples face in their lives. Now, when we talk about the need for ministry in the Orthodox Church, a typical response is, listen, there's a need for a lot of different ministries at every stage of the life cycle, from early education, early elementary education, better Sunday schools, better youth and young adult league ministries. We have little marriage prep, we have little parenting. In fact, we have few ministries for almost any demographic on the life cycle, and that's true. Our choice is to respond to that need specifically at the point where a new household is forming. Because what marriage represents is the start of a home. Here we have a couple that's going to start their home. And so we're choosing to get into that life cycle at that entry point of couples starting a home, because it represents a unique opportunity. Although fewer couples are getting married, those couples who do come to us to be married, we now have an access point. We have a window. We have an opportunity. When I do marriage retreats for married couples, parishes advertise, they do a lot of promotion, and you get 10 couples if you're lucky. And the couples who do come to a marriage seminar in the church are usually not the couples who need marriage prep. They're usually the ones who are connected to the church, who tend to be more attentive to the marriage. So the couples who are actually really struggling and really in need are not inclined to take time out for their marriages. Yet we have an opportunity for marriage preparation because the church chooses who gets married. We do not have to marry anyone. So there's an opportunity in the church to say, yes, we will marry you, but in order to be married, you need to attend this program. You need to do marriage preparation. So because there's an entry point there where we could mandate or require marriage preparation, it represents now an opportunity to get every couple who's coming in to come through a particular program, the ones who need it and the ones who don't. The other thing about marriage prep is that we actually have common ground with couples. That couples are actually interested in having a good marriage. So right away we have an entry point, which we'll talk about in a minute, that represents an opportunity. So in response to this need in the church, in couples' lives, and this gap in the church ministry, the reality is we don't really need more programs. I'm not sure programs are the answer for couples preparing for marriage. What Father Charles Ioannidis and I, who put together this program, recognize is really to help couples in marriage. What they really need is to be connected to the church. More specifically, they need to be connected to a pastor. So although we don't need programs, what we really need is to connect people to their parish priest. So that's what's driving this program. Not to create a program for couples to do, but to create a program that'll connect couples to their priest. And so that's what we'll see as the orientation of the journey of marriage, is that we're here to offer a program to engage couples and to ultimately connect them to their priest. And if you think about it, how long do we want them to be connected to their priest? We want that connection to be solid and deep when they prepare for marriage, so that they maintain that connection as they journey on their marriage. The idea is that, imagine if this priest gets in on the ground floor when couples are building their household, starting to build their household. So our purpose today, our purpose for our 6 weeks, is to orient us to the program, to talk about the purpose of the program and the content of the program. I want to give you an orientation about what the role of the clergy is and what the role of the facilitator is, and kind of talk about a vision that we can get for helping couples prepare for marriage across the Archdiocese. Challenges and opportunities. When you think about this particular demographic, as a therapist, I see a lot of couples, and the most difficult couples to work with are couples preparing for marriage. You're probably reading the slide right now, and I would ask you, what is it like for couples now getting married? And the reality is, they're very busy. These are young couples. Usually they're both working. And increasingly today, they're the ones planning their own marriages, their own weddings, I should say. When I got married, my wife and her mom planned the wedding. But nowadays, couples are actually consumed with this huge burden of planning the wedding in the midst of working full-time. So they're really busy. They've got a lot of pressures on their time. Number two, over 50% of the couples in the Boston area who come to this marriage prep program are already living together. That they're already actually in some ways started on their marriage journey without really understanding what the journey of marriage is, and without the grace of the sacrament with them on this journey. It used to be, when people lived together before they were married, they would conceal that fact. You know, they didn't want Yaya to know about it. So when they'd come and talk to the priest, they may not mention it. Nowadays, there's not even a sense that we should even hide that, because living together seems to be considered a life stage. First you date, then you live together, then you decide to get married. It's considered increasingly culturally normal. It's abnormal, increasingly abnormal for couples actually to live apart. That's just the reality that we're dealing with. Most couples are unchurched. They're not deeply connected to the church. They're not deeply connected to their faith journey. And most couples are uncatechized. Even the Orthodox member in the couple is usually uncatechized. Couples are interfaith. We have more Orthodox Catholic weddings than we do Orthodox. That's just the reality. Couples are disconnected to the church. The church isn't necessarily a real big part of their lives. In fact, for most, they don't want an Orthodox marriage. They kind of want an Orthodox wedding because the wedding is beautiful. In fact, couples come to get married in the church for a variety of reasons, because one of their mothers is insisting they get married in the church. There's all sorts of reasons people choose to get the church wedding, and they're not really connected. The best of cases, couples will feel in love, that they're getting married because they're in love, and they're unprepared, meaning they don't really understand what marriage is. They're getting married because they really like being around each other, and this is the rest of my life. Another interesting dynamic is some couples are uncertain. You know, I like this person, but there's some other things that I'm really concerned about. But usually that uncertainty it's kind of an unnamed uncertainty. I just remembered I got to spit out my gum. It's an unnamed uncertainty. I might have pre-marriage jitters, or is this really right, or are these issues big? There's an uncertainty, which I remember because we don't really know what we're getting ourselves into. And so if someone's actually attuned to the significance of this decision, there's going to be feelings of uncertainty. Also, I think there's a culture that really makes reflecting on these issues, reflecting on myself, my family, and what marriage is, can be really unnatural. That couples, they met because they found each other attractive and they like hanging out. There's not necessarily a culture of reflecting on what am I getting myself into and what's the best way to prepare. So there's a lot of things that work against helping couples to prepare for marriage. However, the key, every couple is interested in having a strong marriage. Most couples on their wedding day do not go into marriage thinking, I'll get married and maybe I'll get divorced if it doesn't work out. No. Most couples deeply want to grow and stay really intimately connected for the rest of their lives. Some fear divorce, but nobody gets married to get divorced. Everyone wants to live happily ever after. So although there are a lot of pressures working against us helping couples, this last point is thinking on the fact that they want to have a strong marriage. And what the church offers, what Christ offers in his church, is actually the pathway to having a strong marriage. So it's this key little opportunity we have that we're banking our money on, because we are going to create, we're going to help them understand what marriage is and actually show them the path to get what they want. So Father Charles Ioannidis, who's in charge of the Interfaith Marriage Department in the Greek Archdiocese, he and I met probably, I think, over 20 years ago when I was in graduate school. I was looking at graduate programs in marriage and family therapy, and I went to Iowa to check out a program, and here I am in the middle of Ames, Iowa, this small town in, the heartland, real America. And I go to this program, and the director tells me, we have a Greek Orthodox priest in our program. I thought, a Greek Orthodox priest? And sure enough, it was Father Charles Ioannidis. He has a Master's of Divinity from Holy Cross and was getting a PhD in marriage and family therapy, which was my path as well. So we met there for the first time. He actually, I slept at his house during my interview, and we connected. And we knew right away, we both shared a passion for this, that somehow our paths would cross again. Fast forward, I think about 10 or 15 years later, I'm at Holy Cross Seminary, and he's in the Greek Archdiocese. And we looked, and we had this very conversation about the state of marriage prep. We saw the significance of marriage prep, we saw the needs, and we looked at each other, and we said, we want to figure out a response to these issues. And our response is what we're going to be talking about, the journey of marriage in the Orthodox Church. By way of review, most of you are familiar with this program. It's a 3-part program, and it's teach out of the box. That what we found around the Archdiocese is that there were therapists who were doing marriage preparation programs. There were priests who had good programs. But the program was usually was done by that person who created the program. And that program lasted as long as that person did it. So we thought, we want to create a program that it doesn't have to be done by Philip or Father Charles. We want to create a program that could be taught right out of the box, that people could pick up the program, go through a training, watch it be done a couple of times, co-present a few times, and they could really offer a substantive marriage preparation program. So in that way, the vision of this program is that it's way bigger than Father Charles and Philip, but really an opportunity for all those people around the Archdiocese who have a passion for marriage, who understand the needs, and who have the skills to really do a substantive marriage prep program. Because we know that not everyone can write a program, but there are a lot of people who can do a better job than we can at presenting the program. So that was our vision, to create a teach out of the box program. 3 parts. Number 1, a meeting with the priest. This is that initial meeting, and we'll talk about it a little bit further on, where the initial point of contact is a couple comes in and says, we'd like to get married in the Orthodox Church. One of the things the priest does in that first meeting is talk to the couple about the requirement of part 2 of the marriage preparation program. Is what we will be spending most of our time doing, because the seminar is lay or clergy facilitators. The seminar is a 6-hour seminar, which can be done as a 1-day retreat. It can be done in 3 evenings. It can be done as a weekend retreat. It's designed to be done with a large group. You could have 50 couples in a seminar. It can be done with 3 or 4 couples. And it can be done one-on-one with a couple. And when we get to that point, we'll discuss that. And then the third part of the program is the follow-up meeting with the priest. Consider that the program is to connect people to the priest, not to connect people to the facilitators, no matter how good we are. Our goal is to pass these couples to their priest. And the follow-up meeting with the priest, among other things, which we'll talk about the business, the goal is that in the follow-up meeting is where the priest can actually go into some in-depth pastoral care with this couple and address some of the issues that couples might be having specifically with their preparation. A little bit more about the history. As I mentioned, Father Charles and I recognized the need separately, came together and looked and said, well, what's out there? What can we offer couples? Again, some priests had marriage prep programs. The Catholics have a pretty robust pre-Cana program that's mandatory. Protestants have different programs that are really great. And there are even secular programs like Prepare, which is a secular program to prepare couples. In fact, the evidence is so compelling that couples who prepare for marriage have a lower divorce rate, that even some states like Florida and Georgia, if couples take a marriage preparation program, the state will give them a $50 reduction in their marriage license, in the marriage license fee, because the data is very clear. Couples who prepare for marriage have a better marriage rate. So it's in the state's best interest to encourage couples to think about and prepare for their journey, because the state recognizes it's bad for everybody. It's bad for our culture, our community, our society to have a divorce rate. But what Father and I realized is that there isn't really a program that introduces couples to the Orthodox perspective on marriage, to our Orthodox approach to marriage, which is at the heart of having a successful marriage. We both are aware of good secular material that helps couples prepare. We also are aware that what some Orthodox have done is they've taken the Prepare program and they've added a few questions to the program about faith and about the church. But we saw that and said, you know, if the heart of a successful marriage is our understanding of Christ in the center and our relationship to Christ within the sacramental life of the church, there's a huge need to have a program that, number one, introduces couples to our theology of marriage. Remember, these are uncatechized. So in some ways, this marriage preparation program is a type of catechism. And the second thing is, we want to incorporate the best secular material into that theology of marriage and into that program, so that we're not just teaching listening, but we're teaching listening in a way that helps couples understand the nature of marriage. So what we'll see in the 6-session program is session 1 will really be an introduction to the theology of marriage. Now, nobody's interested in talking about theology, but remember what couples are most interested in having a successful marriage. So session 1 we'll see is an introduction to the theology of marriage in lay terms, to help couples understand what makes a successful marriage and how do we have a successful marriage, which comes right out of our theology. And every subsequent session, 2 through 6, will add on and bring in secular information, but always referring back to what we discussed in session 1. So that's kind of the historical backdrop. And what we saw is, because couples are so busy, because they're ill-informed about marriage and about their faith, and because they're not really prepared, and many have really poor models of marriage, this has to be a mandatory program. That making this program mandatory communicates to the couples that this is something serious, and preparation is a requirement for a serious decision like this. We'll talk more about mandatory because that'll help us understand the way couples will be coming to us, the types of couples that will be coming to us. So that's a little bit of the history of the program. Program goals. Now, as a professor at the seminary, I know that when I pass out a handout, everyone is reading the handout while I'm talking. So I'm going to talk a little slowly as you read through this slide before I tell you the following: that each one of you should have the Facilitator manual. The Facilitator manual has a lot of the information that I'm sharing right now. The Facilitator manual, watch this, now you can't read the slide. The Facilitator manual is the teacher's manual. Mine says draft because it's an older version. The goals of the program are in the Facilitator manual, but I want to expand on that a little bit. I want to discuss the goals specifically. I can't really say discuss. I want to talk to myself about the goals while you're listening and go through them a little bit, because in many ways, understanding the goals will help you really catch the vision of what we're trying to do. So number 1, program goal is to teach couples about the purpose of marriage from an Orthodox perspective. Number 2, help couples get to know each other. We say get to know each other, we mean intentionally about some specific areas that relate to having a successful marriage. We want to help couples learn some introductory communication and conflict resolution skills, essentially introducing them to how to communicate with each other, reflecting a little bit on the bad habits that happen in marriage about communication, and inviting them to talk in a new way. We want to reconnect couples to the church. That's one of the goals. It is held and it's a church program, and we want to introduce we want to reconnect them as they're thinking about marriage to the church, and begin attending to interfaith issues, helping couples right off the bat start thinking about what does it mean to be interfaith. There's more detail about these goals in the Facilitator's manual, but I just want to highlight these goals now to give kind of the vision of what we're all working towards. There's some broader goals of this program. The broader goal is we want to improve marriage preparation across the Archdiocese. We do not want to replace good programs where they exist. We want to offer good programming where nothing exists, and if there are places that have good, improve the programs. In fact, we want to create a baseline of good marriage preparation programs, so that no matter where couples go in the Archdiocese, the minimum they'll get is really, really good. Number 2, the broad goal, as I mentioned, is to connect couples to pastors and to parishes. One thing that happens as couples come to the seminars is they connect with other couples, and remember, we're pushing them back to their priest to connect them to their priest. The third broad goal I hinted at is to utilize the existing skills and knowledge of lay professionals. That lay people, myself included, have many skills. That it doesn't have the only person who's capable of helping couples prepare for marriage. In fact, There are a ton of people who have something really substantial, really substantive to offer to couples. What we want to do is we want to utilize that all of you on this call tonight are really, you've got something to contribute. And one of the broader goals is to take advantage of all the talent that exists out there to support the priest and to enable us to actually do a good job preparing couples. There is no way a priest alone can possibly do a good job in preparing couples for marriage if he's alone, considering all the other things he needs to do. And there's no reason it has to be the priest who does the seminar. What does need to happen is the priest needs to be a key part of the program. The priest needs to know what the lay people are teaching. The priest needs to understand his role in that program. So that's one of the broader goals, is to connect, figure out a way to use the talent that's out there that's not really being utilized. And then what happens is we've now expanded the circle of lay ministers and professionals who are giving of their time and of their talent to the church. That one of the beautiful ways that professionals and lay people can actually give back their talent is not just by working the Greek festival or teaching Sunday school, but we want to offer this type of opportunity to lay people to get involved and then expand essentially the circle, the number of people who are doing lay ministries. And finally, connect lay professionals to couples and pastors. That there are a number of therapists across the country who are really skilled therapists who are Orthodox that didn't have the opportunity of going to seminary, but really their faith is central to their lives. So we thought, how do we utilize these pious Orthodox therapists and all their great skills, not only to help couples, but actually to help the priest? Because those professionals who run the seminar now become known by couples. And then they develop a relationship with the priest. So suddenly the priest has additional resources to help couples. In fact, one of the benefits for lay professionals, for therapists, of doing the program is they get referrals from the priest. That the priest now knows, I can call on this professional when I have a pastoral issue that's too hard for me to deal, that's too complicated. There are secondary goals. The secondary goals is for those professionals who are therapists, we want them to start thinking about their role, their job as a therapist, not as a job or profession, but as a vocation. That the reason God gives us any talent, if it's in accounting or teaching or singing or being a counselor, is that we offer back our talent to build the body. And so this program was designed to help therapists specifically rethink what it means to be an Orthodox therapist. Number two, the secondary goal is pan-Orthodox. That we saw that, listen, there might be one Greek couple getting married in a small town, but there's probably an OCA parish that's having one couple getting married. There might even be a Serbian parish or an Antiochian parish that has one couple getting together. And we thought, as the biggest and fattest jurisdiction, the Greek Archdiocese, really we have a responsibility to create opportunities for pan-Orthodox ministry, number one. And number two, to bring couples from different jurisdictions together. So our vision is that this program is designed to be pan-Orthodox. Number three, we want to build the community. That we have parishes that really people are drifting away from. What this marriage preparation program provides is that type of connection. That the couples who connect through the program stay connected as a community and stay connected to the church. And finally, one of our secondary goals is to support marriage and family ministries. That this program was designed to fit in a network across the Archdiocese. What do I mean by that? Well, you may be familiar with the youth ministries of the Archdiocese. There's a national office. Every metropolis has a youth person who's in charge of the youth ministries for each of the parishes, and each parish has a youth director, almost. we thought we want to develop a marriage preparation program that fits in that framework. We have a national marriage prep office. We have every metropolis has a marriage prep or marriage and family ministry, and each parish has a point person. So we thought, rather than just creating an independent program, create a program that can actually support marriage and family ministries. That our vision is that the marriage preparation program is one ministry of each metropolis marriage and family department or marriage and family ministry. What we've actually seen this exactly in the Atlanta metropolis. The Atlanta metropolis has just built a kind of robust marriage and family ministry. And one of the major programs of this marriage and family ministry is a marriage preparation program. And that they have facilitators throughout the metropolis of Atlanta who are regional and parish facilitators. And so this marriage preparation program actually facilitates that infrastructure. So it's designed to be like that. Having said all that, in my mind, the most significant goals of this program are to communicate to the couples who come in that the church, and by extension Christ, is relevant to their marriage, that the church is knowledgeable. The church actually knows what she's talking about how to have a successful marriage. The church is informative. I learned a lot. The church is helpful. That experience at the church helped me. The church actually cares. I felt cared for. And the church is welcoming. And the question is, how can couples get this experience, or how can they get this idea that the church is relevant, knowledgeable, informative, helpful, caring, and welcoming? Well, if they experience from the seminar, that seminar, which is a church seminar, that facilitator is relevant, knowledgeable, knows what they're talking about, is informative. I learned a lot from that program. That facilitator was very caring, and I felt very welcome. So what we see is what we're doing in this seminar. This is not Philip presenting stuff. What I represent, what each of you represent when you're facilitating, you're representing the Orthodox Church. So how you come across will be how the church comes across to them. This program was designed to be relevant, informative, helpful, and as facilitators, we're called to be knowledgeable, caring, and welcome. And when we do this, it communicates to the couple that it's not just that facilitator who's all these things, but whoa, the Orthodox Church, that's really relevant. In fact, specifically, it's relevant to the most important thing to me, how to have a successful marriage. And I felt very welcome. Most couples might remember one or two things from the seminar in 5 years. What they will remember is how they felt when they left. Their memory, their emotional memory of the experience of doing the seminar is what they'll remember. And that impression that we make on that day will be their impression of the Orthodox Church. And consider, we're dealing with half the people, almost half the people, who aren't Orthodox. And if you're not Orthodox, you might have some crazy ideas about the Orthodox Church. If your image of the Orthodox Church is your Greek fiance's family, that can be really confusing. So what we're presenting, particularly to the non-Orthodox, is actually the church isn't about old rituals from the Middle Ages. It's about how to thrive in your marriage. And the message we're sending to the Orthodox partner is actually, although you've been checked out with what it means to be Orthodox, rethinking and reconnecting with your Orthodox faith is the path to thriving in my marriage. So that's kind of the backdrop. At this point, feel free to type me some questions before I move on to the next step. I am going to add one more thing I forgot to say, that one of the goals of the program, in addition to helping couples attend, in addition to connecting lay people, is actually one of the program goals. I don't think this is in the book, is to break couples up. One of the goals of a good marriage preparation program is that those couples who are not prepared, by the end of the day, are more aware that this is probably not a good idea right now, that we're not ready. And that's a pretty dramatic thing for couples to realize, but we consider that a good thing. More importantly, we consider that one of our goals, that we are there to help couples really think about this. In fact, we're there to have them think about it so seriously that some of them make the decision, we need a little more time. We might even postpone the wedding, which I want to say happens regularly. And although it's traumatic to the couples, it's much less traumatic than divorce, which is why we can say it's a good thing. It's a good thing to think seriously and to rethink your decision. All right. Since you can't talk and there are no more questions, I'm going to continue on. Boy, I should get like my kids on a program like this. This is perfect. So, number one, part one, the initial meeting. The initial meeting is found in chapter 6 of your facilitator manual. It's important to know what the priest, it's actually chapter 4 of your manual. It's important to know as facilitators that this is what should be happening with the priest before they come to your seminar. Each priest, when you present this, so each priest in the New York district, each priest in the Seattle area, each priest where you are, should be trained on this program. We haven't quite given an orientation to all the priests in New York. We're going to do that in the upcoming year, because what we'll do with the priests is we go through the program with the priests so they know what's being taught, number one. And number two, we spend time saying this is the expectation of that initial meeting. And number three is this is our expectation for the follow-up meeting. So what the priest needs to do, if you can imagine, establish a relationship, offer some guidelines for marriage in the Orthodox Church, things like impediments, what's the process, what needs to happen, confirm the wedding date, identify canonical and pastoral issues like making sure everyone's baptized, getting all those records, any pastoral issues that need to be attended to, inform couples of the part 2 of the seminar, make details about wedding preparation, what needs to happen, and confirm the next meeting. So as you can see, this is just an overview. In chapter 4 of the book, it goes into more detail about the initial meeting. Follow-up meeting. As you can imagine, we're not going to spend that much time on the follow-up meeting, but I just want to say things because it speaks to our goals to the meeting. Number one, the priest is supposed to follow up on the seminar. The priest is given an orientation and given instructions to ask specifically, how was the seminar? What did you take away from the seminar? Success rate on that, it's a little bit hit or miss. In Boston, I've done follow-up talks with the clergy and actually given them a handout of questions to after the seminar. I have a sheet of questions the priest can ask. Specifically, questions about session 4, questions about session 6, because the priests have a lot going on, and it's not unlikely they'll forget some of this stuff. So I give them a list of questions to ask. Number 2, explain the wedding ceremony. Typically, if a priest has any marriage preparation, what they talk about is the ceremony, how the ceremony is going to happen, the procedures. First you start in the narthex, then you'll come in, there'll be a little table, we'll do the candles, and they'll go through the ceremony. They'll explain the symbolism. What do the crowns mean? What do the candles mean? What does the common cup mean? the typical information found in a wedding brochure. Every priest knows that stuff off the top of his head, which is why most Orthodox marriage preparation consists of going through the wedding ceremony. So every priest knows this, so when we developed this program, we specifically did not include this in Part 2. In Part 2, we do not talk about explicitly the symbolism of the common cup, the candles, the crowns, because we knew the priest can do that afterward. And we want to tell the priests that by doing this program, you are not giving up your role in marriage preparation. You have to be there. The goal, this program is meant to challenge the priest to stay engaged in marriage prep. And one of the ways is to allow him to share what he knows about the ceremony and allow him to connect. Number 3, address canonical and administrative details, dates and times, making sure everyone gets baptized, interfaith issues. Number 4, and this is the heart of the program, address particular pastoral issues of the couple. What do we mean by pastoral issues? Well, issues of interfaith, issues of are they ready to get married? What about this living situation? We don't specifically talk to couples about cohabitation. And it's not just cohabitation, it's premarital sex. Because we decided it's not appropriate, number 1, in a group setting, and number 2, from a facilitator who they don't know and will not see again, to bring up some of these sensitive topics. So we've specifically designed this program that after the seminar, in the pastoral conversations, as the priest gets to know the couple, he can ask them about these things. He can discuss, have the two of you thought about being a one-faith family? He can talk about how to best prepare for marriage. And in that sense, talk about cohabitation actually not being the best way to prepare for marriage. Couples who take the seminar might become aware that they have some issues around finances. They have some issues about interfaith. They have some issues about the in-laws. They might have a real hard problem about things like where they're going to live. The seminar is meant to raise the issues. The follow-up meeting is meant to attend to these issues. So if the goal is to raise the issues, the key to the program is the priest doing pastoral follow-up. Because it's our belief that the priest should spend his time in this area, that it's the role of the priest to get to know the couple intimately. And so the program is designed to facilitate that intimate pastoral conversations. So you can see that the challenge of this program is that we don't actually take anything away from the priest. We actually sharpen the spear, sharpen the point of that pastoral care encounter. So if you want to read more about the issues that the priest should discuss, you can look at the Facilitator's Manual and look at Chapter 5, which goes into much more extensive detail about the issues to address and the way the priest can address these issues. So what we see is our job at the end of the day is going to be helping couples recognize what issues have been raised and direct them on how to attend to those things. So the good news is it's the responsibility of the facilitator just to go through the seminar in an effective way and to communicate those meta goals of being knowledgeable, informative, helpful, caring, and welcoming. And then to redirect the couple with this impression of the church to follow up with their priest. So when we think about doing something as, I want to say, robust or as substantive as a formal seminar with trained facilitators who are coordinating our lay ministry with the priest's pastoral care, this is not historically a typical way the Greek Archdiocese has functioned. So what ends up happening when I present this vision of marriage preparation to clergy, I get two responses. Number one is, this is really not how we do things in our church. And my answer to that is, you're right. This is not how we've been doing things in the Orthodox Church. This is how we need to do things in the Orthodox Church, and we are perfectly capable of doing this type of work to really offer a substantive marriage prep program. Then, after the orientation, after priests see the program, learn about the program, and catch the vision of this type of program, I always get the second response, which is, we should do more programs like this. Why don't we have a program like this before baptisms? Why don't we require couples when they're coming in to be godparents to require this? Why don't we do a 5-year follow-up to have a marriage enrichment program? To which my answer is, those are great ideas, and we also can do this. And the first step is to do this, and to do this well. And that as we do this well, it'll help move us in the direction of other people writing additional programs and doing other things. We're just going to focus on doing this program well. So we knew 10 years ago when we thought of this that this is really going to require a cultural shift in how people understand how the Orthodox Church functions. And we said, yes, that's a good thing, because it is challenging to think about training people to do this program. How are we going to find the people? How are we going to train them? And my answer to that was, there are so many talented lay people, and they are underutilized. I believe there are many people with a real heart to give in this meaningful way. And we want to take advantage of that. And so that's my answer to the change in culture, is it needs to happen. But it's in the nature of change in our church that it takes time. So we are committed to moving in this direction. And every step of the way, I found two things. Number one, it's challenging. This is a new way of doing business. And it is beautiful. It is moving and it is powerful to see lay people running a program and having couples walking away saying, thank you so much. And the facilitators are not therapists. They haven't gone to seminary. But what they are is, they really have a passion for marriage and in their own marriage, and they really have a passion for helping couples thrive in their marriage. So we're going to be always facing those two things. This is kind of a big commitment. This is a real challenge. Will this work? And when it happens, this is really beautiful. And so it's kind of into that we're walking into. Aren't you glad you signed up for that? So, what are we up against? Number one, I mentioned what we're up against. This is not how we do things. The answer is, we can't say that anymore because we are doing it this way. And so what I have found is the biggest thing we have working for us is the feedback that couples give to their priests. When couples go back to their priest, who may doubt this, because this is kind of, what is this, Protestant or American or something like that, and the couples say, Father, that seminar was so helpful, thank you very much. The priests gently get converted to this program. So as a side note, I have had so many naysayers look at me like, what are you trying to do? We're not professionals, what are you trying to do? Until couples come back and say, you know, is there a way we can go back to that in 2 years? So the real answer to this is not how we do things, is doing a great job. Doing a great job, being prepared, engaging ourselves in this process, that the fruit of our effort, the fruit of our commitment, the fruit of our love starts growing all around. So our goal is not to change the world. Our goal is much smaller than that. Our goal is to offer a great seminar and then let God change the world in His time. Number two, what we're up against is we don't have time for this. 6 hours is too long. Why don't you just do 4 hours? That's a tough one, because the answer to that is they are preparing for the biggest decision in their lives. How much time do they spend on their weddings? Right? Anything meaningful takes time. So our answer to that is it has to be 6 hours, a one-day seminar. We don't have the time? No, we don't accept that. You have to make the time. You have to make the time, because that's how long it takes, at a minimum, to really reflect on preparing for marriage. So this is why it's mandatory, because we get a lot of pushback. Priests get a lot of pushback. And the answer to pushback is mandatory, which means you will have couples who don't want to be there when they come into the door. You will have couples who don't know what to expect. They're just thinking, I don't like doing things mandatory, I don't like being forced, I don't really know what to expect. And I say that's a great thing. The answer to I don't want to be there is give them a great experience. Many couples come in saying, why aren't I here? They don't really tell that to me. I know it, and so I mention it somewhere in the program. And when we go through the program, I'll note where I mentioned that we're all forced to be here. And every time I mention it, I get a lot of response, as if I've now spoken what they're all feeling, but they can't really share. And then at the end of the seminar, almost to a person, they say, thank you very much. This was very helpful. We appreciate it. So the very couples who resist the priest come back and thank him. That's our answer to we don't have the time for this, is it's mandatory, and we're going to give you a program. The third challenge is we don't know how to do this. We don't know how to run a program. We don't know how to train facilitators. We don't know how to get couples to go attend to the seminar. Yeah, that just makes it a little bumpy as we get started. Takes a little longer, how we're going to work this out, but we're going to work toward that vision. It works to some degree in the Boston. We're now implementing this in the district. It's all along the Atlanta metropolis. In time, it's our vision to have this across the Archdiocese. The answer to we don't know how to do this is we will show you how. I will show the facilitators how to do it. The facilitators will show the priest how it's done. The committees will get together and we'll help them. And so the priests realize, oh, I understand my role. We can do this. We get challenges for couples. We've already mentioned time. We get challenges for priests. It's too much. I don't really have it. We're working on that. It's the same answer. Couples coming back. And we get challenges from the hierarchy. But in fact, the last challenge from the hierarchy has been the least. Most of the hierarchy are the quickest ones to buy into this program, because they're the ones who feel helpless in the face of this horrendous divorce rate that we're experiencing. So again, as you can see, part of what we're doing is we're not just running a program. We're helping move the church toward a vision of good marriage preparation and active ministry. So now we are at the 9:30 mark. This is kind of a quick overview of the whole program, just the vision of the program. While we're saying goodbye to each other, I'm just going to put up that last slide, because I know you're reading it even more than you're listening to me. I'm sure you're listening, but I want you to read this. The deliverables, there's two books that you see, the couples workbook, which is a small book, and then the teacher's manual, which you got it. The Department of Religious Ed is where we get these materials. You will get you should have gotten PowerPoints with your facilitator's manual, and then we are going to offer this kind of training. And my commitment to the facilitators is I will stay connected to you. My goal is that you are running the programs without me, but that you have access to me. In each metropolis, as the metropolis gets a point person for marriage prep, I stay in contact with the point person and the facilitators, and the point person stays in contact with the facilitator. So at this point, any questions or comments? While you're typing, if you're typing a question, I'll just give you an overview. I'm going to try and switch this out so I can see your beautiful faces, and so you have a way to talk back. But for the rest of our sessions, we're going to go through the 6 sessions with your facilitator manual. And we're going to step through it kind of quickly. We're not going to take so much time. And we're going to go through to help understand the content and then the role of the facilitator in this process. All right? If there are no more questions, you can just text me good night, and I will say good night to you.